Welcome back, everyone. I'm the Ballet Gamer, and we're back with another really good archetype. This one is the polar opposite of the dual weapon warrior archetype that we talked about last week. Yes, this week we're talking about the Duelist, which, to be completely honest, is very much a lot like the dual weapon warrior, only just with one hand and an empty hand rather than two weapons, though there are some very distinct differences. The Duelist is one of the most flexible combat based archetypes with how their feats are arranged and some of the feats that we're going to get into. Not only that, but a lot of them are very much aesthetically designed and even mechanically designed to make your character look like someone who is very intelligent in the field of combat tactics and is a very proficient fighter. It gives you that feeling that your character does know what they're doing and knows what they're talking about when it comes to combat. So this is a really good one, especially with your character to pick up something like dueling lore or something along those lines, so that your character can even further reach that aspect of being a professional in combat, especially when it comes to one-on-one duels. But before we get into the dedication itself, you know the drill. I really appreciate all you guys are doing, but if you could at least leave a like if you're enjoying this, or subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. We do all kinds of archetype videos and stuff for Pathfinder 2E and tabletop in general. And speaking about tabletop in general, we also have a Discord linked down in the description where we talk about all things tabletop, including Warhammer 40k. So if you want to join us to explore new tabletop games or the like, join us down below. But with that, let's go ahead and get into the Duelist dedication. So, like Dual Weapon Warrior, this one is also really good for its dedication feat, because dedication feats, as you may know, are not necessarily always the best. They may give you some skill proficiencies, the access to some cantrips, something like that. Something that's not necessarily that great, but still kind of good. But no, this one's good. It's just, as the Duelist dedication feat is, you get quick draw. And this counts as quick draw for the sake of using quick draw related feats, or as a prerequisite for quick draw. Very, very good overall. And quick draw, if you didn't know, is as a single action you can draw and strike with a weapon. I thoroughly enjoy this one, especially because it doesn't even have to be a melee strike. I don't believe it does not. It in fact can be just draw and strike. It can be with a crossbow, it can be with a thrown weapon, what have you. And as long as it counts as a strike and it's not a unique strike action, this is a really good feat in general and perfect for a one-handed weapon wielder, as the second you draw that weapon, as long as nothing is in your other hand, you're pretty good for anything Duelist related as far as their feats or prerequisites are concerned. So it's really, really good. Dueling parry, similar to the one as the fighter, is for a single action you can raise your guard as long as you're wielding a one-handed weapon in one hand and no weapon in the other hand, or nothing in the other hand. And you get a +1 circumstance bonus. Oh no, it's just a +2 circumstance bonus to your AC until the start of your next turn, allowing you to, despite not wielding a shield, to get a lot of the benefit of raising a shield, which is really, really good and fits perfectly with the Duelist. Duelist Challenge is such an interesting action, though I feel like in practice it might not be as good as one might think. It leaves one rather inflexible. So this is an open action, which means I believe you cannot have a multi-attack penalty when you're using it. Well, yes, actually, technically true, but you cannot use an open action if you use another action with the attack or open trait yet this turn. So, as long as that's your first attack action, which means you can still move or do whatever, you just can't use anything that has the attack trait or the open trait. And essentially what it is you point someone out, you declare them your target, and for until they're defeated, flee, die, whatever, you get a +2 circumstance, or not even circumstance bonus. I think it's just +2 damage. Oh no, I was incorrect. You gain a circumstance bonus to the strike's damage equal to the number of damage dice your weapon deals. You also take a circumstance penalty to damage equal to the number of weapon damage dice your weapon deals to anyone else. So this is good because this allows you to focus down targets. This is bad because if you need to reactively change targets in a fight for whatever circumstances may occur, you're now going to be fighting at a deficit until your target dies anyway. And if your target dies, you are free to challenge anyone else. There are no prerequisites, or there's no frequency to this feat whatsoever. So overall, I think it's really good. It's perfect for boss battles. It's just not good in some situations. It's one of the most inflexible feats as far as this whole archetype dedication is concerned, but it's still really good nonetheless. Disarming Stance is a stance that allows you to get a +1 circumstance bonus when you're attempting to disarm someone. Circumstance? Yeah, circumstance. And a +2 circumstance bonus to reflex DC checks to avoid being disarmed. That doesn't happen. I almost never seen any like actual enemy attempt to disarm a player unless that was the whole theme of the character. So if you're not fighting a bunch of swashbuckling style duelists, that benefit isn't great, but it does give you an extra chance to disarm enemies, which can potentially be good. There's a lot of discourse around disarm. I'm not going to get into that here. Overall, the stance is okay. Now, unless stated otherwise, just assume that most of these feats require that you're using a one-handed weapon and have nothing in your free hand. That's also a requirement for this one. I'm just not going to keep saying it because it's literally in almost every one of these feats. So, yeah. But it's a pretty okay stance overall, I guess. Depending on some of the reactions or actions you can get, which we will go into. Selfless Parry is a really good feat. What it does is, as long as you're benefiting from the dueling parry feat, so you've used an action to raise your circumstance bonus to AC, any ally adjacent to you, I do believe it's ally specifically, yep, gets a +1 circumstance bonus to their AC as well. Not only that, but if you get the dueling riposte or repose, which will be the next feat we'll talk about. If an enemy critically misses them, you can still use that reaction on that enemy as long as they're within your range, which is pretty good. Dueling riposte or repose is a great reaction because what it allows you to do is if an enemy critically misses you, it allows you to strike or attempt to disarm them. If you're in that disarming stance, this disarm attempt does get that +1 circumstance bonus. Even better, disarm is a terrible action because disarming is an attack action, which means it suffers from and can incur multi-attack penalty, which is really bad on your turn. But as a reaction, that's a different story. As a reaction, it allows you to attempt to disarm an enemy, and you don't suffer any multi-attack penalty, and you don't really incur it because you're not using any other reaction, or you're not using any other attack actions that enemy's turn. So this is really good, and disarming, if you didn't know, even if they just fail or you just succeed the check, they suffer a -2 attack penalty to using that weapon until the beginning of their next turn. And they have to adjust, or I should say, they have to adjust their grip to fix it. And they also become weaker to further attempts to disarm, which is potentially really good. This means that for the rest of their turn, they are going to suffer any attempts to attack people unless they waste an action to fix their grip, and it's really good. And if you manage to critically succeed on a disarm check, they drop their weapon in their square, which is really good because this could force an enemy to use an action to bend down and pick a weapon up, which is really, really solid. So overall, disarming stance is really good when you're taking dueling riposte into consideration. Disarming Twist is a really good feat because it really lays the pressure on whoever you're up against. Now, it does have the press trait, so you do need to be suffering from some kind of multi-attack penalty when you use this action. But beyond that, it's really good because essentially what it does is it's an action that you make a strike with. Yeah, make a melee strike with a required weapon. And in addition to what that strike normally would do, the enemy also suffers from the effects of a successful or critically successful disarm check. And this also comes with a really good miss effect. So if you do miss the strike for whatever reason, but not critically miss, the target is flat-footed until the end of your current turn, allowing you to keep attacking the enemy And it, even though the -10 might be a little bit rough, or maybe a little less if you're using an agile weapon, it is really good because it at least closes that gap, because they have a penalty to their AC as much as you have it, not as much, but and you have a penalty to your attack. So this allows you to really press onto an enemy. And if you don't have any specific strike actions, there's no reason why your second attack action shouldn't be this disarming twist, because it's just an attack action that has the effects of a disarm on top of it, making disarm good. And it just, there's a lot of good things that can really happen with this, and there's really no downside to it other than the fact that you can't use this without a multi-attack penalty, which, you know, given its effects, makes a lot of sense. Student of the Dueling Arts is such a good feat. This feat has no business being this good. So what it does, right, is it allows you on your daily preparations to swap around whatever duelist feats you have with other feats that you have access to, right? Actually, one side, you can swap out any number of duelist archetype feats for other duelist archetype feats of the appropriate level which you qualified. You can't swap out duelist education or student of dueling arts. Yeah, that's really, really good, because this allows you to swap around feats that you feel like might work a little bit better for you. It essentially removes the training time. There's a good number of feats as well. The level 4 feats and the level 8 feats in general can be easily swapped around to fit your particular styles. And I enjoy that overall. It gives a lot of flexibility. But honestly, that's a little mid. Not going to lie, because if you're using the bonus archetype feat, you're going to be picking up the level 6, or one of the level 4s as a level 6 feat, so you can't really swap out any of your level 4s. It's actually a lot better vanilla rule, honestly. But one thing that is really, really cool about this is you don't need to have the stances anymore. It does take an additional action, though, so you can use any of the stances that Duelist has just by spending an additional action. So standardly 2 actions, which, I mean, it is 2 actions because both of these require 1 action to get into. And you don't need to pick them up. So if you are fitting this into your character build, that is essentially 2 feats this feat gives you for free on top of its flexibility, which is absolutely nuts. It's a really, really good feat. And yeah, it does offer a little bit of inefficiency, and it does, like, it's not broken by any means, but it makes your character seem super proficient. They're knowledgeable about a lot of different skills. They decide one day, oh, let me try this style. I wanted to see how this works. There's a lot of good aesthetic you can add to your character with it as well. So this is just, the student of the dueling arts is just really, really good. Dueling Dance is a really good stance. It's so good. So what it does, right, for an action, or not an act, or, well, 2 actions if you have the student of the dueling arts, you can just benefit from dueling parry at all times. It actually saves you so much action economy in the fight, as long as you're not, like, switching stances all the time. And dueling parry, if you didn't know, is a +2 circumstance bonus while having a one-handed weapon and no weapon in your other hand. This is so good because you just save yourself on those actions. This is a really good stance because you're constantly benefiting from a higher AC. This feat means that you are essentially getting a +2 circumstance bonus to your AC at all times after you've entered into the stance, which makes getting into the stance equivalently an efficient action that gives you dueling parry. It's the same action amount as just using dueling parry, only now it's permanent, or at least until you no longer meet the stance's requirements. That's really good, and it's actually level 14. A lot of games kind of end in around the level 14 to 17 range, give or take. So you still do have a good amount of time, hopefully, to get use out of this feat, because it's just really, really good. Improved Dueling Riposte is just making Dueling Riposte even better, because now you gain an extra reaction at the beginning of every one of your turns to use Dueling Riposte, and you can only use Dueling Riposte in that additional extra reaction. This is really good for classes like Champion that have a very good reaction that they want to kind of conserve, or for something like Fighter who has Attack of Opportunity, which is a really good action. And this just allows you to kind of have that little extra in the bank in case enemies miss you. It's not that good, and with as late as you pick it up, level 14, it's okay, I guess. It's just enemies critically missing you doesn't happen that often, about 5% of the time of the total amount of times you're getting attacked. So it's statistically speaking. So it's okay. It's really okay, and it allows you to just have that reaction on hand when you need it, or if it ever comes up. And honestly, like I said, for Champion or even for like Fighter, it's just a really good pocket pick to have. And if you're using the bonus archetype feature, I recommend everyone use, despite what I've said about some of the feats in this before, this is just, why not pick it up? Because then you just get a little bit more action efficiency with your reactions. It's really good. You don't even have to make certain choices with that. It's a really good feat otherwise. Guiding Repose is really good. I have to stipulate, it still has the same problems that, Dueling Riposte has, which is when an enemy triggers your Dueling Riposte, and I think you do have to successfully strike the enemy that triggers your Dueling Riposte. You can then move them 10 feet anywhere within your range as forced movement. This is really good for battlefield positioning. 10 feet is a lot of feet that you can force an enemy to move. You can move them into really bad situations. You can do a lot of things with this one, and it's really, really good. It's still based on the stipulation that an enemy is missing you, and with an added stipulation that you then need to hit the enemy successfully with your strike, which still is never going to be 100% guaranteed, even if they have a lot of negative modifiers, really, unless they're a really low-level enemy. In which case, well, yeah, anything works on low-level enemies, honestly. So this is really good. I do love the idea that you can force enemies to move. They're moving to your flow, and you are constantly pressuring them. And with the dueling dance, and you're constantly benefiting from your parry, and thus you can do your dueling riposte, more easily. This is a really good action to have overall. The only thing that doesn't make this like an S tier or even like an A tier feat is the fact that it's just, the stipulations are the unlikely chance an enemy of value misses you, and then you have to then strike them successfully as well. So that being the case, pretty good feat. I enjoy the aesthetic of being able to move your enemies. They move according to your will and all that other kind of stuff. It's just really, really cool. And yeah, that's going to be the Duelist dedication archetype. I think it's a really good archetype, honestly. And again, as similar with the dual weapon warrior archetype dedication, this archetype is perfect if you plan on playing the Duelist, if you plan on using a single one-handed weapon and nothing in your free hand. Heck, this is even good if you're playing something like a Thaumaturge as their implement. It's really solid. There's a lot of different styles that Duelists can be used in, and it does offer a lot to a build that essentially requires you to have nothing in your free hand. So overall, I really, really do like this archetype dedication, and with the mix of certain kind of items like armbands of athleticism or whatever, the ability for you to manipulate enemies by grappling them, tripping them, and having a weapon that is potentially doing more damage and what have you, does mean that this archetype dedication is just almost necessary if that's the way you want to go, just because it offers so much value that you just can't find in most other places. And if you're using the bonus archetype rules, it's kind of like just getting extra feats as being a fighter, honestly. It's just a lot of the feats come from the fighter archetype list, or the fighter class feat list anyway. So, there's that as well. But there's a lot of different classes I honestly and truly believe can really benefit from the Duelist. But that's going to be it for me. I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you all so much for watching. Good luck with your games. Leave the bad luck to me. And I'll see you all next time. Bye.